Hey, I'm Cynthia Martin. Huge thanks to the Boulder Bookstore for inviting me to talk to you today about my novel titled Flats. Here's what the hardback looks like, and here's what the paperback looks like. So and also I meant to mention this is my Colorado hat. It's not Boulder, Del Norte, but I love to travel, even though I'm a total East Coaster. Right now I'm in Provincetown, Massachusetts, but I'm in Boulder at least once a year, and I love the Boulder Bookstore. They have asked me to answer 6 questions, and I have written them on these cards. So let's get started. Number 1, can you give us a brief synopsis of your book? So, Title Flats is the story of 2 people who want different things from life but want a life together. Cass wants a husband who comes home at night, but Ethan's job takes him to Afghanistan, often for months at a time. Ethan wants children, but Cass does not. They reach an agreement. Ethan will continue traveling back and forth to Afghanistan for 3 years, and at the end of that time, he'll come home whether Cass wants children or not. The novel opens 9 weeks before he's supposed to be home for good. Question number 2. What inspired you to write this story? So between books, I usually take a break, like a month or something. And this was December, and I was busy wrapping presents and decorating the tree and all those sorts of things. And I kept getting these 3 thoughts that would bust into whatever I was doing over and over again. So finally I wrote them down. They were, number 1, the title would be All's Fair, which it's not. Number 2, it would be the story of a marriage. And number 3, one of the couple, either the husband or the wife, would have something to do with either Vietnam or Afghanistan. Number 3. Did you do any research into photography and or Afghanistan while writing this book? I did. For the photography part, I went heavy into the photographs of Steve McCurry, who is most well known for Afghan Girl. And for the Afghanistan part, I have the most amazing thing to tell you about that. So it's January 2013, and I am boarding a plane to come up here where I am now to Provincetown to start writing this novel. And I still don't know whether it's going to be Afghanistan or Vietnam. I haven't done any work on it yet. All I know are the 3 things I told you. So I can see up ahead where I'm going to be sitting, and it's one of the older planes where there were only 2 seats on the side I was sitting, and the man I was going to be sitting next to was already there wearing a mask, and in those days masks were uncommon. Anyway, I was kind of ticked about that because I was afraid I was going to catch something. Anyway, I was minding my manners, and I put my bags up and I sat down, and I didn't say anything until we were sitting on the runway, and then I couldn't help myself, and I said, "So, are you sick?" And he said, "No," and I'm trying to keep it that way. I've been traveling for 3 days. I'm on the way home from Afghanistan after spending 3 months there. So that was settled then. And Michael Sheridan, documentary filmmaker, graciously spent that entire flight showing me photos from his computer and, telling me everything, answering all my questions. And we kept in contact. And so I talked with him a number of times while I was writing the book. And I also talked to his wife once, which was especially helpful since the novel is told from the point of view of Cass in the So that's the research. And then of course one thing led to another, and I did a little bit more, but he was my main source on that, which felt exactly right because, since Cass was telling the story, she is learning about Afghanistan from Ethan, and while I was learning about Afghanistan from Michael Sheridan. Question number 4. Can you tell us about your writing process? So I can write anywhere, anytime. I love writing in the mornings. I love writing up here in Provincetown. When I first started writing, I was so left brain. I spent the first 20 years of my life doing French and languages all the time. And then I became an attorney, also a left-brained activity. And I love making lists, that sort of thing. So my right brain was about the size of a pea. So I structured my writing process to encourage my right brain to come out of hiding. So I don't outline. I don't try not to know the ending. I write longhand because I don't write longhand because if I'm writing longhand, then it takes too long and I have time to think too much about the beginning of the sentence and mess with it. So I just type away as fast as I can on the computer, and that helps get out the roughest first draft that I can, and encourages, the mistakes and all that you want, encourages the right brain. And finally, let's see, what else do I want to tell you about my writing process? Details. Details help me tell the story, and I learned that from your own Pam Houston. And I usually focus on, because I'm focused on concrete physical objects, then it makes me feel like I'm not making stuff up. It seems easier somehow. And finally, I let each sentence lead to the next sentence and the next sentence. And then when I'm done, I revise, often for years at a time. This is number 5. What are a couple of books you've read recently that you really loved? So I would say number 1 was a memoir that I read by Kelly McMasters called The Leaving Season. It's about how hard it is to leave, and the writing is excellent. Also, a novel by Melinda Moustakis called, what is the name of that novel? Let me see if I wrote it down. It's called Homestead. And that's wonderful. It's about a marriage, a couple who live in Alaska like my lifetime ago. And finally, I read Mourner's Bench by Sandaria Faye, and that's the story of a young girl in a Black community as she is learning about how things work in the world and coming to terms with religion and feminism and racism, of course. So number 6, is there anything else you want us to know about your book? So Tidal Flats was my debut, but so the first novel published, but it was not the first novel I wrote. I wrote 3 others before this one. Also, in Tidal Flats, the main storyline is about this young couple, Cass and Ethan, but it's also about the people at Cass's workplace. And Cass works at a home called Howell House, which is a home for 3 older women who are called the Fates. And I just love that part of the story. Number 7, can you read a short passage from the book? So I'm going to read from chapter 4, and I'm going to read for about 3 minutes. Cass and Ethan are in their apartment. In their galley kitchen, he stood there, his hands in his pockets, while on their small island she assembled the mustard, pimentos, softened cream cheese, and bowl of grated cheddar. He loved it when she made her grandmother's pimento cheese. "How's the new Fate?" he asked, leaning toward her. "Lois, she's 86. She has children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. I wonder what being 86 feels like, having your life behind you." Cass stopped stirring, looked at Ethan. "She's not dead." "But babe, scientifically speaking." These years count as much as the others. I refuse to accept that the Fates are just waiting to die." She leaned against the counter. "But they're 50 years older than we are," she said. 50. That seems impossible. Lois's kids wouldn't let her bring everything she wanted to. He pulled out their kitchen stool and sat, watching her. "There's this pair of red heels," she said, stirring again. "Heels?" "Yes, heels. The man who once loved her like you love me gave them to her. He's dead, and now she doesn't even have the shoes." "If you get them for her," he said, "then one day, 50 years from now, maybe someone will retrieve something I gave you that our children make you give away." "How do you do that?" she asked. Turn a conversation so completely. 2 plates, 2 glasses, 2 of everything, which made her think of Noah and wonder what was coming. "While you were in the shower," he said, "I checked about getting you a ticket to Boston. Not many options since I'm going up one day and coming back the next. Almost $1,000. Because you leave in 11 days, but who's counting?" He tilted his head and took another bite of Parmesan cheese. He tilted his head and took another bite of chicken Parmesan. They were eating on the table that had been in her apartment. 2 candles. "That's an absurd amount of money," she said, twirling her wine glass. "And Boston's just one night." One night was not a problem. One night was a breath, her glass door. "I'll be back before you can miss me," he said. "I missed you while you were gone today," she said. "An odd day to miss me." "A safe day to miss you," she said, looking into the same eyes she'd looked into all those years ago at the duck pond. Shadowy eyes that could see the beauty in Afghanistan. Eyes that could see things as they were, and yet something more. Thank you for listening, and thank you to the Boulder Bookstore.